Hi there everyone, Andrew Roberts here, and you're in for a treat with this week's blog. We're very fortunate to be running an interview with Siimon Reynolds. Now, for those of you that don't know Siimon, he's one of the most prominent business owners and entrepreneurs in Australia. He's been on 60 Minutes, many other TV shows. He's won practically every creative award in the advertising industry. He co-founded a company called the Photon Group, grew it to over 6,000 people, and he's dedicated the next 20 years of his life serving, helping entrepreneurs, passing back what he's learned. Now, I read this book, which you can see on the screen here, called Why People Fail. And I was very lucky to have Siimon actually mentor and coach me one-to-one. And Siimon and I share a very similar passion when it comes to helping business owners, entrepreneurs. And Siimon established a company called the Fortune Institute, where I was very lucky to work as their head coach with many of the entrepreneurs that they serve. Today, we're going to really explore 3 concepts out of this book, Why People Fail. I really know that this is extraordinary value, particularly to business owners, entrepreneurs. But if you're not a business owner or an entrepreneur, make sure you watch this. It's going to go for about 30 minutes. It's got some really useful advice that will help you actually not only achieve more success when it comes to your career, but also outside in your personal life as well. So let's go to the interview now. See you soon. Oh, forgot to tell you, make sure you look out for the part where he talks about morning rituals, how he starts his morning. I really drill down and he shares exactly what he does. Siimon, we're going to get straight into it, and I've introduced you, and I've obviously spoken about this book of yours, Why People Fail. And you've come up with these 16 obstacles, and your number one, which we're not going to actually talk about today because I spent a lot of time on this, but it is interesting that your first obstacle is unclear purpose. And once again, I just want to really position the importance of that. But as I said, I don't want to focus on that today. I want to have a chat about 3 other obstacles, Siimon, that you've identified. And I remember when I read this book, these really stood out for me. And obviously, having you as a coach of mine, we really did focus in on these 3 as well. And just to summarize the 3, poor self-image, no daily rituals, and weak energy. And so for our listeners, I just want to firstly talk about this concept of poor self-image. And in your words, Siimon, I mean, how do you define poor self-image versus positive self-image?
Well, that's a really good question, because a lot of people talk about self-image and it does need a definition. For me, it's pretty simple. It's that do you see yourself as worthy of and deserving of getting all that you wish in life? Because a lot of people will set goals, a lot of people will have aims, and a lot of people will spend all day working on them. But in subtle ways, they get sabotaged by their inner feelings about themselves. And how does this manifest? It manifests in their how they are with other people in business meetings, let's say. They just don't exude the aura of someone that you want to give business to. It manifests with their interactions with their suppliers, with their staff, and even with the people at home in their lives, And it all comes down to self-respect, worthiness, whether they feel they deserve to be at the table of life that gets all the wealth and all the good times and happiness.
I mean, it's such a fascinating topic. I mean, this is one of my topics that I love to dive into, Siimon. And why is it that people carry, if you like, a poor self-image? I mean, what causes it?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and a deep question, and a controversial question, because, there's all kinds of therapists that will say, oh, it's what happened to you when you were a kid, or, there are pivotal emotional moments when you were a teenager that created you a certain self-image. And although that may be true, or true in part, I don't think it particularly serves us to dwell or even guess, because it is just a guess, on how we came up with the self-image that we did. But I guess in direct answer to your question, it's past events, and more importantly, it's past reactions to those events. You know, some person has a bad father who tells them they're good for nothing, and they decide they're good for nothing. Another person has a father who tells them they're good for nothing, and they become a billionaire. You know, so exactly, was it bad that this occurred to them? You know, it's all in their reaction to their comments. So, you know, there's a famous thing that you of course know of in NLP, which is the map is not the territory. And our opinion or our feelings about what happened in the past are not what happened in the past. They're an interpretation. And particularly when they've stemmed from something that occurred 10 years ago, 20 years ago, they're almost certainly inaccurate and exaggerated interpretations of what happened in the past. So I guess in a nutshell, yeah, we get these self-image limiters from stuff that happened in the past, but we also get amazing self-image boosters from stuff that happened in the past as well. And these two mix together and create our overall self-image.
Yeah, it's such a fascinating topic. And obviously, you and I both know, Simon, that you can work on improving your self-image. And the saying by Jim Rohn, you know, working harder on ourselves than we do on our jobs. And I'm about to get into morning rituals or daily rituals, which I know you taught me is probably one of the most important things for us to work on to maintain a positive self-image. But what are some other tools that people can use to work on to improve their self-image?
Well, you know, I love the word tool that you used, because a lot of people think, oh, I'm just this way, I have a bad self-image. No, the reason that someone has either bad, average, or good self-image is a result of the consistent thoughts that have been in their minds over a period of time. So not the occasional thoughts, the consistent thoughts. So that being the case, and understanding it, a good parallel, a good paradigm for looking at the brain is that it's a piece of software. And so we can install new thoughts inside the software that give us new results. So how do we do that? What are the tools for doing that? Well, I think I'm a huge believer in mental rehearsal. And, you know, we just saw the Olympics conclude. And literally late last night, at about 1 a.m. last night, maybe even 2 a.m. last night, I was studying the London Olympics website, because it's got some tremendous interviews with the world's greatest athletes after their races about their mental processes, about what they do to make sure they're at peak state when they go into the Olympics. And what we see again and again and again is that the top Olympic medal athletes in the world today are rehearsing perfect performance. Now, the truth is we're all rehearsing what's going to happen in our life. But if we're not careful, then our own negativity on occasions and our own sense, on occasions, lower sense of self-worth means that we start to imagine when we're in the shower in the morning or when we're driving off to work that things aren't going to go well, that we aren't deserving of great success, etc., etc. So tool one is to literally spend a few minutes a day rehearsing how the day's going to go, and more importantly, how you'll perform no matter how it goes. The next is to monitor your self-talk very carefully. You know, there is this beautiful opportunity we have to make our own interpretations support us. You know, there's a very famous guy that many people have heard of, and I know that you've read books of W. Clement Stone, and he wrote books with Napoleon Hill, very famous books. And a lot of them were about positive self-talk. And the interesting thing about Clement Stone, for the people who are in business on the call, is when he died, he was worth about $800 million and ran a series of insurance companies. So this wasn't a guy who just talked about feeling good. This is a guy who manifested feeling good in a business scenario to make hundreds of millions of dollars. And what he believed is that really a lot of it was in your interpretation. And he was known, he had a very unusual characteristic. He was known as a inverse paranoid. And so what that was the following. Even if something bad happened to him, he would always say, what's good about this? What's good about this? And he would incessantly look for the good in the situation. So another part is self-talk. And then the third part is having a clearly established ideal, a self-ideal. What is the person that you want to be? What is the ideal of yourself? Now, sometimes we match that ideal, and other times we're the opposite of that ideal. You know, we get angry or we disappoint ourselves in various ways. But I believe that a clearly defined self-ideal, Andrew, is a crucial determinant in having a high self-image. Because as soon as we've got that self-ideal clear, then our daily mission each day is to work towards it. And suddenly that makes life simpler, easier, and far more successful.
Yeah, and I mean, Simon, one thing that I really found about this, if you want to get fit and healthy, we go to a gym. But if you stop going to the gym, over time you'll actually start losing the muscle and start losing the health. And you know, one thing I take my hat off to you've achieved all of this success in business, and you've now started a new company. Yet you still do this on a daily basis. And would you agree that when you stop doing it, you can actually lose like the muscle from going to a gym? You start losing that self-image, and it's a consistent, it's a part of life. And how do you make it a part of your life? How do you commit to it so it becomes part of a daily routine?
Well, look, great question and great point. You know, this whole concept that you don't just suddenly decide to have a great self-image, an empowered self-image, that you work on it. Mate, that is so accurate, and you know that does segue nicely into the area of rituals, because we've all gone to seminars that made us feel good, and we decided to do things a certain way. And we've all had the New Year's resolutions to do things a certain way. And we've all suffered at various times from the personal self-disappointment that when we didn't deliver on those things. And some people get to the point where they don't even bother setting a new goal because they just know they're not going to go ahead and fulfill it. They have lost trust in themselves to actually carry out their hopes, dreams, and desires. And so much of this could be stopped, and all the evidence suggests it could be stopped. Huge amounts of research suggests that it could be prevented if we set down daily rituals to do these things. So what's a ritual? Well, it's something that we do, preferably at the same time every day, that moves us forward towards a goal. And enormous amounts of research from organizations like the Human Performance Institute in Florida, for example, have shown that generally when we set a specific time of day and a specific amount of time each day on working at a particular thing, we get it done. Whereas the average person has no ritual. They have no time of the day that they're particularly going to do it. They have no set of procedures that they follow to do it, and they just live, as Zig Ziglar used to say, they're a wandering generality rather than a meaningful specific. There's nothing specific about their goals, and so they never or rarely manifest into anything worthwhile.
I mean, for me, Simon, the biggest thing that I've learned in being successful, the morning ritual. And how you start each day, and it's just one day at a time. And I mean, I'd love for you to actually share your morning ritual. How do you start your morning, and what specific things do you do in your morning ritual?
Sure. Well, look, when I get up, I normally start work at 7 o'clock in the morning, and what I do is I do almost the same thing every day. I fill out a page with focusing statements, and so what are they? I literally just write down a page of stuff about my ideal self, how I want to be. So I am confident, I am strong, I uplift all, I earn this much per year. I'm organized. I'm neat. I'm disciplined. I'm happy. I'm grateful. I am this. I'm that. I'm that. Right? It takes about 2 minutes. But you know what's amazing is in that 2 minutes, undoubtedly, I shift up several levels because I often find, and I think a lot of people watching this would find, when you're an entrepreneur, you've just got so many obstacles that sometimes when you wake up, it's kind of like, do I really have to do another day of this? And I'm no different, from other people in that from my walk from my bed to my desk, I'm tired. I get up a little earlier than 7, but I'm at work at 7, so I'm tired. I'm not necessarily motivated, and depending on what's happened in my life, I may be feeling like there's a million obstacles or only a few. But regardless, I sit down and I write out those focusing statements and I change. So that's the first part. The second part is at that point I write out my goals. Sometimes I read my goals, but generally I write out my goals, which is around 14 for this year, for the calendar year. And I like that technique because of course they're memorized now because I've been doing it for a while, but I write them out and I think about them as I'm doing them. And that takes about another 3 or 4 minutes. And then what I do is I go on YouTube and I just put on a song. I just search some artist and I'll click on a song that I like. And that goes for an average of 3 or 4 minutes, and I close my eyes and I do mental rehearsal. So how do I want to be? How do I want my life to be? How do I want to be performing today? And I do that to an inspiring track. And that really helps me. So I used to do it with a CD player. But then I've just gone on to this system of using YouTube. But either works. And it's beautiful because you get emotionally involved with the track, and therefore it's ingraining your brain with the importance of this and getting yourself really engaged with this style of life. Okay, then what I do is, and I'm not suggesting everybody do all this, okay? I'm just saying what I do because you asked me. And you look, if you stop there, that's a great start to the day if you do your to-do list. So I go a bit further. I read my vision of what I want my life to be. And then I read why I can do this. So I have a list of reasons why I can do this. Because sometimes, we think we can't do it and we need to be reminded. So I literally set down the reasons why I can do this. And then I have another list that I read, which is why I must do this. Why this would be great to do for me. And it's not just, it's for me and it's for society. And I come up with any reason I can as to why I must do this. And then I sit down and do my to-do list, right? And that takes around 20 minutes. And that is not a huge amount of time. Some people say, well, I don't have 20 minutes. Well, yeah, but you're about to spend 10 hours potentially performing in a mediocre way because you haven't set yourself clearly and in a motivating manner towards your future. So I say, well, what are you doing with your time, the other 10 hours a day, if you don't have 20 minutes to do this?
Oh, look, Simon, it's just, I love that step of writing out the why I can do this and then following by the must. It's something that I don't actually do. But I guess that's getting you in that state. By now it's probably 7:30. And when it comes to hitting your list of things to achieve, I'd imagine your motivation's high, confidence is high, and you're ready to hit the day running.
Yeah, I love that you said confidence, because that is what really counts. Yeah, I'm motivated, but I am confident I can do it, and that I should do it, that it's worth me committing yet again for another day to this way of being. Right? And so when you've got that confidence, then what happens? You start taking more actions. You start pushing yourself further. You start taking more qualified risks. And furthermore, people detect a certain way that you are, and people want to be around confident people, don't they? And I remember when you gave a talk for us at our last event, and it incredibly high marks. I don't know if you were shown, but it got incredibly high marks. But part of it was what people saw was someone that's very comfortable in their own skin, that is, their videos matching their audio. Who they are inside is who they are on stage, that you're living this because you deeply believe that this is worthy of your time and that you deserve to be that type of person. And that is incredibly magnetic, whether it's sort of someone speaking on stage like yourself, or whether it's someone watching this video who needs to go into a sales presentation today to make enough money to feed their kids. That kind of confidence is priceless in business and in life. And it's something that 20-minute regimen, or even 5 minutes of that regimen, plays a huge contribution in delivering.
I mean, I find it life-changing, the morning ritual, and I can't teach it, as you know you can't, if we don't actually be congruent and do it. And so, I mean, you just linking back to what you were saying before with the Olympic athletes, they're all doing this, and they're the top of their game, and it's like, well, why can't business owners do this? Why can't successful people do this? And it's so easy. For me, I can't start my day now without doing it. And as you know, it's keeps me connected to operating at that higher level, as I'm sure it does with you.
Oh, 100%. And as you say, it's like once you get into doing it, for those people who haven't done it yet, once you get into doing it, you can't do without it because you feel so good after it. And, it's not like you have something arduous to do that gives you no payback. You get immediate payback straight after you've done it. But at the heart of it, it must be said that the way rituals work, whether they're marketing rituals, whether they're human performance rituals in the morning, whether they're studying rituals, getting better rituals, at the heart of it is doing it on days when you don't feel like doing it. Because if your ritual is only when you feel like it, it's not a ritual. And so there's no progress. And to me, one of the greatest distinctions of someone who makes it to a high level in life, no matter what field they choose to be a high level in, it could be being a great mother, or it could be being great in their business. It really comes down to putting your commitments ahead of your feelings. I don't care what you feel like, just do this at the time that you said you do it, and then everything will be fine.
Yeah, I read the other day definition of a professional, someone that can do their best work even when they don't feel like it.
I love that.
And I think there's a point, Simon, where people make a decision to move from amateur to professional. And a professional will do this daily regardless, an amateur won't.
Yeah, I love that, and so damn true for any field. I mean, Roger Federer, greatest tennis player in the world, maybe the greatest ever. Of course, there are days, probably months, where he despises getting up at the crack of dawn and working his ass off until he gets a certain set of rituals done. But he still does it. And I think you're at the very core of it. That's what really matters.
And look, leading into this last obstacle, weak energy, and I got a major breakthrough from your book on this. And you talk about, obviously, that the more energy we have, the easier things are to do. It's just it's a no-brainer. But I didn't really fully understand that. And 1 hour of inspired work, Simon, will beat 6 hours of uninspired work. And we know when we're full of energy and we're alive and we're feeling great about ourselves, obviously we achieve more. But the biggest thing that you taught me was 1%ers. There's little things we can do that have an enormous boost in our energy, and clearly that morning ritual, in my case, and I'm sure in yours, is a major part of increasing energy. But I'd love for you to share maybe 2 or 3 simple tools again, that maybe 1% is that what can people do to move their energy to the next level? What are some techniques that you work on to maximize your energy?
Yeah, great. Well, look, let me just throw in a few. It's a very big field, but one of the let me start at the end. One of the best ways of having energy is what I call cleaning the whiteboard at the end of the day. So, we start off and all this stuff happens during the day, precious meetings, thoughts, interactions with other people, and at the end of the day, the whiteboard's full of stuff. Now, what happens a lot is that people just go to sleep and they get up and there's the full whiteboard of their lives, and now they've got to write a whole lot of stuff on a whiteboard that's already full. And what I believe is critically important to having energy when you wake up is to take the time to do two things: to review your day and work out, first of all, what did you do well, what did you do better, and then to congratulate yourself on some of the stuff you did well. And whenever I do it, I'm always surprised. There's always 2 or 3 or 4 things when I do this exercise that I'd forgotten about. That a reminder, the ritual of doing it, really just reminds me, you know what? I made some progress today. That's pretty good. I did pretty well. That's the first part. The second part is literally to release all the pressures of the day. And what I do there is I get into bed and I do 3 deep breaths. And with each breath, I imagine throwing out all the stresses of the day, all the problems of the day. Breathe in, throw it out again. Breathe in, throw them all out. And then the last in-breath, after the 3 out-breaths, I just fill myself full of positivity and optimism, right? Now, how long does that take? You know what that takes? It takes around, 12 seconds. But when you do it, you just feel this stress leaving you. And you say, right, that's the day. And then I go to sleep visualizing my life how I want it to be. So that also helps you sleep better because it gives your brain something to think about. Rather than thinking about the problems, you're visualizing how life is, how you want it to be, and that allows you to forget about the stresses. And then, so that's one part. And when you wake up, you're ready to go. You're feeling good. Your subconscious has been affected by this clearing, I think, in a very positive way. So that's number one. Number two is I'm a huge believer in exercise, and there's enormous amounts of evidence to show the correlation between let's just take aerobic exercise and your capacity to think. The reality is that our brain is, I think, only about 6% of the weight of the body, but it's around uses about 30% of the oxygen. So by having a highly oxygenated system, by having a set of lungs that pumps oxygen and blood in an efficient way through your system, your ability to think faster is going to be enhanced. And why anyone would want to penalize themselves in the competitive world that we're in and not have fast oxygen flow because you've got a strong aerobic capacity by doing aerobic exercise, I got no idea. I mean, talk about penalizing yourself for the rest of your life. So that's another really important thing. I think another thing for energy is to, and this sounds strange, but is to be the person that you really believe is a good person. I honestly believe this. If you behave in a way, and some people do it because they think they can make more money out of it, if you behave in a way that isn't character-based, so in other words, if a primary part of your goal isn't to be an extraordinary, noble, decent character when you're at work all day, then I feel that you get more tired. Because to be nasty or to try and hurt people or to try, cut corners with the service that you offer or to not be an uplifting, noble force in the world, I think that tires you for several reasons. One, your subconscious knows it's not right. Two, I think it's against natural law. I think the way nature is, it supports beings that support the rest of the ecosystem. So if you're someone who's only out for yourself, you're not out to help the greater good, then nature is not necessarily for you. It's not going to be doing much to support you. It's going to, focus its resources or her resources on someone who's out to help the world a little. So I think that's another way, an unusual way, but that's another way to increase your energy.
Energy, huge, Simon. I mean, so much of it comes back just from listening to you this morning, and if I was to put a summary over everything, discipline around controlling your mind. But not only that, routinely applying times. I mean, look, you've mentioned you do something in the morning. And I'm sure you do other tools and disciplines during the day, but then just before going to bed, I love what you said about the discipline of just stopping and putting good thoughts out there and letting everything go first with breaths. We have a shower to clean our bodies, but how often do we shower our minds out with all the noise and the stuff? And that's what you're doing, I'm assuming, before going to sleep.
Yeah. And I think you're so right about the whole, the grand aim is, as you say, the control of your mind. Because we'll get enormous success and colossal happiness if we can just start addressing that. And the funny thing is, I know you're not in this category because I know some of the amazing stuff you do each day to make sure you're in top mental state. But, the amazing thing is, the most that we know of, the most intelligent being on the earth, the human, if you look at the average human, they're spending no time trying to control their mind. Even though when it's discussed, they accept that if they did, they get far better results.
Huge, Simon. Look, I've just taken down a whole page of notes again, and I've learned so much from you. And the thing that I love most about learning from you, Simon, is you've achieved so much, and now you're so passionate about giving back. What you've learned, you're passing back on your knowledge, your expertise. And obviously we've got an event coming up, which I'm going to be sending out some further information. I know you're running from the Fortune Institute. But we've just covered 3 little obstacles to why people fail today. And, for me, I define success as the ability to have freedom and fulfillment. So the ability to do what you like when you choose, but also to be able to live each day happy, content. And I know how important that is from your angle as well. And these tools, it's not just about making more money, it's about living a full life. And I'd love for people just to acknowledge, we're bringing up an image of Simon's book here. Simon, if you're comfortable, if we allow people to have a couple of chapters of this book, I highly recommend it. I've read this book on a number of occasions. Recommend it to all my clients, and they can grab a couple of copies below. But just a really brief summary, Simon. 3-day event coming up in November in Sydney. If you were just to summarise what business owners would get out of this event, what would you say?
Well, this is the 3rd year that we've done this event, and really it keeps getting better. We're refining it and refining and refining it, and it's now one of the largest events of its type in Australia. And it's all about speaking honestly with entrepreneurs and saying, hey, we know how you feel. We are entrepreneurs too. Now, here's what we did to make our businesses work. Yeah. This is what we did to make, in my case, several tens of millions of dollars in business. Here are the mistakes I made. Here's how I corrected them. And here's what you can do to not only make a lot more money in business, but to have business be what every one of us intended it to be when we started, which was not only a source of financial freedom, but a source of enjoyment and satisfaction and self-esteem and fun, to balance those two things with large amounts of money. And what we do is we fill the room with speakers who have made money. They are not in almost every case, they are not professional speakers. They are professional entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
People who've made generally millions of dollars in their business. And that's what really makes us distinct from other seminars. Is I literally just go into my Rolodex and say, who do I know who has been really successful in business, who's got something to say, and they come up and they tell all. And it's, I guess another cool thing is it's not a sell-fest. We do not allow any speaker to sell anything on stage. It's just pure information. It's a real kind of outpouring of contribution, I think. And that's why it's, it's just got this incredible reputation now. And frankly, we get people just coming back year after year who've already been to it, just to be part of it, be part of the energy of positivity, and see the strategies that can make you successful in business.
I mean, it's incredibly affordable. It's an incredible 3 days, and for me, leveraging off other people's experience. That's one of the keys to success. It's just tapping into what someone's done before you. Exactly what I've done. I've applied what you teach, Siimon, and you see the results immediately in your business and your life. For me, more importantly, in the life. So we'll be sending out some further details of those, but grab the 2 chapters below. Siimon, I got an enormous amount out of that. I'm sure our listeners did. Obviously, covering why people fail. So grab the 2 chapters below, immediately below this video. There's an image of the book there. Siimon, thank you very, very much.
Well, Andrew, as usual, it's been incredibly inspirational, actually, to sit down with you and have this interaction. I'm leaving energized because I think some of your questions were fabulous, and all tribute to you, mate. You're doing great work in the world.